Marcus hangs up the phone. After having hung up the phone, Marcus refused to answer its constant ringing. He reported back to Peter Richardson, their counselor, explaining the situation and providing enough evidence of what he had dealt with over the years. Once the damage was done, Marcus finally listened to Jane's original advice, which was to talk to her father, Maxwell Turner, because he needed a lawyer to make the situation less complicated. A mediator organized a certificate for Marcus to initiate family court, seeing as his ex-wife showed no willingness to negotiate. Marcus was happier than ever, trusting that a legal family plan regarding Hope would materialize. His ex-wife was very sour and changed her police report by giving a false statement claiming that Marcus attempted to murder her by strangulation. On November 25, Marcus was served with papers showing the change in her earlier statement. The former couple met in court 5 times before reality hit Hope's mother that Marcus had moved on with a better woman. Then, on February 1, the police called Marcus to come into the station. They were planning to arrest him. Luckily, Marcus called Maxwell Turner, and Maxwell had time to help Marcus set up a bail application before volunteering to be arrested, not resisting the proper authorities investigating to prove his innocence. Family counseling with Peter Richardson was no longer an option, as Marcus desperately needed more legal support. After the collected evidence proved Marcus's innocence, his ex-wife made sexual allegations, but the police quickly dropped all charges because Marcus had no history of sick conduct. Regarding the third statement his ex-wife had made to the police, it was concluded that her claim that he tried to murder her by strangulation was groundless. Matthew 19:9 reads, "I say to you that whoever divorces his wife, except on the grounds of sexual immorality, and marries another commits adultery." Marcus's ex-wife then told Child Protective Services that she was a victim of messed-up role-playing fetishes throughout her and her ex-husband's on- and off relationship. One laughable statement she'd made was about tea parties, which if states years earlier would have seemed more like a consensual agreement. Jane read that in the subpoena reports and laughed hysterically. Gwenvale Asylum claimed that Marcus had mental problems resulting from his having been an underachiever placed in remedial classes throughout his school years. Sure, Marcus had a D+ average, but he tried hard to learn. Dr. Tracy Geneland's programs were designed to help those falling behind, not to divide those falling behind. Her hope was that such children would be a part of the community, not set apart from it, as seen in the Nev's programs for teens. Behind bulletproof glass inside a courtroom just like the one Dark Sparrow had been in on Albac, Marcus was granted bail. Judge Vedic Jones could see it was a bitter move to keep a father away from his only child. Not to mention that Marcus's ex-wife had no abrasions and so forth. The judge's rationale was that a nurse must respond whenever someone buzzes for assistance, just in case it is an emergency. The police and FBI also must respond when someone plays the victim, just in case it is an actual attack. The problem was that back then there were not enough police to protect Nankin City. Recently, Eric Fitzgerald hired more police. Judge Jones thought, if Eric Fitzgerald can turn good, then I guess anything is possible. The bail terms that were set forth gave the authorities a chance to investigate without resistance, seeing as Marcus had nothing to hide. Marcus was not allowed to work in pediatrics while under investigation for criminal behavior. Marcus donated his martial arts weapons and equipment to a friend in Chicago, who later donated the items to Dr. Axel Chase. Marcus never wanted anyone hurt, he just wanted to be a part of Hope's life. Because his ex-wife was no direct threat to Hope, she had full custody. Speaking to Jane Turner, Marcus said positively, "I now appreciate what my government can do for me. I appreciate politics and law after seeing good people fighting a battle that I'd never understood before. Without your father, I would be so bloody screwed, spending life in prison." I will also forever be grateful to Judge Vedic Jones, who even gave me 10 minutes worth of compliments, saying I was a decent human being as I watched from behind a glass wall. I need to interview effectively and open my mind to multiple perspectives. However, I must be mindful that I should not get mentally bogged down if I cannot please everyone. I am so happy that Elizabeth and I can easily communicate while talking about so many subjects. I shall silently co-author every novel with Elizabeth and do a 10% royalty dedication to your father so he may expand his work to help others, on the condition that his clients meet him halfway when it comes to their legal issues. Most of Marcus's friends came up with hypothetical reasons why it sucked to be Marcus Johnson or why God did not save him from that Hell's Angel. Then again, the other friends and each investigator who became involved pointed out how much happier Marcus was to be in a wonderful relationship with Elizabeth. For Marcus, the suicide ideation was only temporary, but he is still considered being, as he has been considered for a long time, a mental health risk. If I could go back in time to change the outcome, I would have a different set of problems and most likely be in jail. The police report saved me from my ex-wife's games. Not that I can make sense of why it had to go that far or when the justice system will look at the other side of a story. Marcus rose above a great deal of difficulty, eventually throwing out his prescription of antidepressants. Antidepressants are recommended for our war veterans. I have not been to war, so these medications not for me. It is just a fact that life will get harder and more unpredictable. My ex-wife will make sure I am sorry that I ever met her. Initially the antidepressants helped, but it is not a long-term solution to be drugged out because of the lengths one person will go to make me regret ever having been born. Marcus's favorite spot was on the train bridge path alongside Nev HQ. Marcus went there to shout out and release tension at least once a month. It helped him to vent. It was therapeutic, just like when Julie shouted at the ocean at 9 Mile Sapphire Beach. Julie was so scary that the king tide was frightened to come in. You can take away my son and you can destroy my career, but no matter what, you will never take away my one true love and my best friend, who is by my side, Marcus shouted, looking over the river. Soon FBI agents got involved, repeatedly nagging Marcus about his novel. One agent pointed out to Maxwell Turner that one of Marcus's characters strangled a mobster in his fantasy novel. This was taken literally to support the earlier allegation. What the motherfucker? It's fiction, for crying out loud, Maxwell replied. Marcus called Jane Turner on June 21 to talk privately in honor of Hope's 9th birthday. It had been 5 years since he'd last seen Hope. Marcus explained nearly emotionlessly, I found him here dead. And I wanted to say I am having myself committed to Gwenvale Asylum to live my life in a place where no one I love will be hurt anymore because of these countless investigations. I must now give up on ever seeing Hope until he is of an age to decide for himself if he wants to see me without his mother's influence. Do not cry for me, Jane, because I have found the greatest power of all through Elizabeth, true love. Jane usually gagged when Marcus mentioned true love, but this time she cried for her best friend whose life had been wrongfully destroyed by 4 narcissists. Zonal Giovanni clearly was strangled to death with his throat torn apart. Who the perpetrator is remained a mystery. Jane knew that Marcus would not have done that, although the evidence made it look that way. According to the jury of his peers, the blood was literally on his hands. Investigations are necessary. Simply let the government do its job. Reports save lives. I should have listened to you sooner and gotten Maxwell to represent me earlier on, Marcus said to Jane. Then none of this would have been as bad as it was, he said fearfully. Did Marcus deserve to live fearfully in the past? Did Marcus deserve to go to prison? Did Marcus speak the truth when he admitted that the worst thing he'd ever done was against his ex-wife? Troy wiped his tears and began opening to Jane. When Marcus joined NEV, I told him he needed counseling. Every time Marcus gets counseling, the paperwork is subpoenaed. So, I gave him Dr. Tracy Genelan's details so he could talk to someone privately without records or written notes, thereby avoiding the fear of manipulation. I never shared this information, but we all know Dr. Tracy Genelan is a warm-hearted psychiatrist who many people see each day, Troy explained gracefully. Jane said, Peter Richardson assisted Child Protective Services in taking Hope from his mother that year and then placed him into foster care since the allegations had become very serious. Nigel stood over Hope one night as he pretended to be asleep. Kicking upward, Hope broke Nigel's front teeth then ran out of his apartment and straight into Major Thorne's apartment. Hope and Major Thorne finally put a stop to Nigel's sick behavior. From then onward, Major Thorne has been the best bounty hunter in town. He just remains silent about his good deeds in rescuing an innocent child. Using my sorcery to produce one shadow clone, along with my disguise spell and some Cyangan blood, I disguised myself as a husband and wife looking to adopt. Adopting Hope was a long process. I took Hope to Albak, far away from trouble, and followed what I understood to be Marcus's will for how to raise him. In Emerald, with strict laws, Master Desmond raised Hope as if the boy were his own. Hidden from any more investigations, Hope studied Marcus's unfinished weapons master manuscript and became quite skillful for his age. I later took on other personae to adopt children who had been abused by Nigel Giovanni. Edward and I helped them to become independent children while waiting for their parents to get their act together. Otherwise, once a child is in the government system, it's hard to reunite them with their parents. Society needs to punish the parents who manipulate their partners, placing their children in danger just as Marcus's ex-wife did. Jane wiped a tear from her eye. Let's be honest with each other, Troy. You got served with a conviction for knocking out Nigel, even though he was clearly guilty. That's why your MMA career is on hold for a couple more years. I have not completely worked it out with the scales of justice, seeing as good, loving parents like Marcus are forced to completely lose contact with their children, yet I do not know the pain of a parent being separated from their child. Jane sobbed. Jane grabbed the mixed martial arts Troy Marino version of an Edward the Cat doll and began telling the story in his voice. Edward also helps with his community, ensuring all children are loved, safe, fed, disciplined, and educated. Once it is suitable to do so, I retrieve each child as a hero, finding lost children to rehabilitate families. I have seen so many hardworking members of Nankin City lose access to their children when in a heartbeat they would sacrifice themselves if it meant the children got to live. Jane gasped, looking at the whiteboard. Embrace Diversity Week. Cameron's religion has 6 people blessing each tower at 10 p.m. It is tradition each year to bow down at each tower. All 6 are not meant for Albak, they are meant for Earth. Troy showed her a clock. The time was 21:40. June 21st, tomorrow morning, I am to reunite Marcus and Hope at a family court at 9 o'clock, seeing as 7 years have passed since Zonal's death. Now that Nankin City's entire court system has merged, complicated matters are settled more effectively. Supreme Court and family court matters are handled mostly by Judge Vedic Jones. Troy had ideas flashing through his mind. If Trinity and other scions can split into 2, would our enemy maybe be at 2 spots at the same time? Say 3 foes wait at 2 towers each, or is psionic fission only for a level 10 scion, speaking in game references? I need to get offline and back into MMA. Who knows, Troy? Organize as many nevs as you can and place them on guard tonight. Troy packed 2 large duffel bags with various equipment belonging to Dr. Axel Chase. Your son, David, will be safe. Tonight, we fight for what is right. Is your head focused and ready to fight a bigger fight than Troy versus Major Thorne? Without warning, the ground began to tremble. Equipment fell as the walls tore apart. Behind the hidden weapons locker, chanting could be heard. Axel predicted that the Emerald Mana Tower was going to come here. Inside the weapons locker. Troy pointed to the hidden weapons locker. Troy whispered, shocked, while sweating profusely. Run. Troy carried the 2 duffel bags as he ran up the stairs and out the front door. Troy, I have a bike with a side cart over there. Jane pointed across the road next to the warehouse. Jane drove as Troy rode passenger, turning back to see the Emerald Mana Tower tearing through the Chase residence. Meanwhile, Trevor Banks and 5 Ruby cult-like mystics arrived inside the hidden weapons locker in pitch-black darkness. Trevor channeled mana into a bloodstone. I summoned the Elder Elemental Blaze. 6 purple portals opened, gyrating counterclockwise, as the Elder Fire Elemental's presence ignited explosives. An instant chain reaction caused an explosion, igniting all ammunition and bombs. The Emerald Mana Tower shattered and collapsed across the street, crushing the abandoned warehouse. As the smoke cleared, a crater 1,000 feet in width remained. 1 megaliter of multicolored slime flowed into the underground sewer and into the electrical system below the Chase residence.